Hi, you're listening to the Build Your Digital Community podcast. I'm your host, Kristina Bartold, the co-founder and co-CEO of The Social Snippet, a social media agency focused on business owners growing their digital communities. On this podcast, we'll talk about all things digital community building so that you can grow your network and ultimately your business. Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Build Your Digital Community. I'm so excited because this one is live, and I get to hang out with one of my business besties, Ali Hicks-Wright. And Ali is one of my favorite people that I know from a mastermind that we did together, and we really connected and with a little group of our little squad. And I give tons of referrals over to Ali all the time because she is such a talented website designer. She does the most amazing branding. And so today I have her on the podcast. I'm so excited. And we're in Denver, which is kind of her hometown-ish. And I'm just so excited to be here with you.
I'm so excited that you're here in Denver.
Oh, I know.
I haven't seen you in a long time.
It's been a long time. We haven't seen each other since we went to Cabo. But we keep the love alive. We do little calls.
Yeah, well, you keep it alive.
Yeah. Which actually is kind of what we want to talk about today.
Yeah, exactly. Because I have some hard boundaries.
Yeah, by hard boundaries, she means she goes dark.
Yep.
Well, maybe, Ali, we had an episode together that was still one of the top, it's probably still in the top 15, which is awesome. And we talked all about branding. And at that point, I had never been to Target, so that was kind of interesting. But now I'm there. But I'd love for you to tell people a little bit about yourself and kind of maybe how you got started in entrepreneurship and in business.
Yeah, I started my business about 7 years ago and really never looked back from there. I own a branding and design studio called Amari Creative. So we build brands and websites and messaging for small businesses and solopreneurs. And so in terms of getting started, it just was kind of this like big leap that I took as a 22-year-old. Not really sure what was next and, deciding that if I was going to take a risk, it might as well be like 1 year post-college and just try it out. And so that's exactly what I did and just kind of started small and had a few clients which helped me be kind of that lily pad to starting the business and then built it and grew it from there and have been able to bring on like my best friend as an employee and work with her and just really grow the business and be able to serve other business owners in terms of building their brand and really getting their brands established to launch their business. So that's how it all began.
Well, okay, firstly, I'd love for you to tell people, and I'd love for you to humble brag a little about what kind of brands you work on.
So lifestyle and wellness brands is the best way to describe it. We work with a lot of experts who have been in their field for, say, like 10, 15 years, that they're just truly an expert at what they do. And now, whether it's a personal brand or starting their own business, they're ready to branch off and do it themselves and just have that like entrepreneurial freedom. And so we really help people just establish that brand. And so that's who we get to work with. It's so fun because we get to work with just the greatest clients. Like we become friends with our clients by the end of it, just like you and Maria. It's just so many people doing so many cool things. And it's so cool to see that ripple effect of like, okay, great, we get to help these people build their brands, but then we get to see them then go off and really thrive in their business and serve so many more people through their business, which is so cool for us to see just how that ripple effect happens. And I'm sure you see the same with your clients.
I was actually going to say that I think a lot of what I'm passionate about the Social Snippet, it's like not about the Canva documents. It's not about the writing even of the captions, but it's about the fact that all of the people that we work with, like all 60 people, like at this point, all of them have these like big dreams that we get the opportunity to market. So it's like we get to every month be like, okay, what's on your heart? Like, what are you like putting out? Like, what are you excited about? Like, and be able to like put that out there for folks. And so it's amazing because I think that's kind of what aligns us so well and makes us such good power partners for each other is that like I know when I work with a client and they're like, I need a new logo or I need a website or something like that. Like you're such a great person that I can go to because I know like you'll take that same care because you see it the same way. It's like we get to work with people and like we don't take for granted the fact that we get to work with people like on some of their like biggest life dreams.
Yeah, it's so true. And I mean, you sent me a referral this morning and I know that anytime I get an email from you connecting me with someone, that person is going to be someone that I like just highly resonate with and connect with just because I think like within our businesses, we have similar values and just like really like to connect with our clients in a similar way. And so it just is always so special because I know that those clients like are just going to be some of our most favorite people.
Okay, so actually let's talk about this a little bit in a bit more detail because so Ali and I normally when I bring people on podcasts, I never have like an agenda. Like I'm never like, I want to talk to you about this. It's always like we get on and I'm like, wow, like we'll see what we come to and we come to something amazing. But for you, I actually sent you a voice note, I think a few months ago, and I was like, there's something I like, need to talk about with you because this is something that keeps coming up in the question box when I ask people who listen, like, what do you want to hear from me? And this isn't something that I can talk about, which is like building your business, growing your business as an introvert. And so for me, something that we've been really like, you know, leaned into, and it's actually really funny. So I was just hanging out with my friend Sarah Jansel, and you'll meet her later today. You're going to love her. And I was hanging out with Sarah, and Sarah was just at a Chris Harder roundtable. And she was telling me that Chris was asked, like, they were talking to like a group of people, and Chris was like, do you guys know Kristina Bartold? And everyone was like, yeah, whoever knew me. And he was like, oh, Kristina goes into a room and she can just like scrape for clients. And when she said that to me, I was like, oh my God, like my heart stopped because I was like, I never want to be seen like that. And she goes, no, it wasn't a bad thing by any means. She's like, what he meant was that like you go in, you make connections, you build strong relationships with people, and like you like I get as many clients as I don't get, but then I'm also giving people business and I'm like excited about making referrals. But my power really is I think this like community piece that I think really leans on the fact that I am quite extroverted. That like I love to make connections with people. I love the opportunity to like I can have lots of friends and like lots of connections and maintain lots of relationships, and that feels exciting for me. And so that's what Chris was saying was she was like she can go into a room and she can befriend 30 people.
Yes.
And that's how she's grown her business so quickly. And at first I was like, oh, I don't want people to think I'm a sleazy car salesman. But when I thought about it more, didn't love the word scraped, but but when I thought about it more, it was such a compliment because obviously Chris is the most incredible, but it was such a compliment because I was like, oh, actually like he's right. Like when I do go into a room, I typically do leave with clients, but it's because like I spend so much time getting to know people and like I actually think what we do, like everybody needs. And so I think that's been part of my gift. So for you, you've built this amazing business that's so successful. And like, we've talked a lot about like, you know, being in similar places in our businesses. And so, but you are introverted and a little quieter.
Definitely.
And so I'd love to hear a little bit about how like that has helped you in growing your business and like what that superpower is not for you.
Yeah, well, I would say, first of all, for you, it's not just that you're going into a room and talking to 30 different people. It's that you're making valuable connections with each one of those 30 different people, and you're giving them advice, you're connecting, like you're really seeing and hearing them. And so I think that is truly a big piece of your magic and why you're able to connect with so many people and grow your network so naturally for you. But yeah, for someone like me, that is not quite as easy. Like I just am by nature, I'm introverted, and that's not like I love that part of me. Like I like to be in my own space, like homebody introvert mode. But for me, I really do have to see it as like two different switch. I see it as a switch almost. So when I go to masterminds or I go to business events, there is this extroverted switch that I turn on. And it almost is like this different side of me that like, if you're with me at home, like you wouldn't really see me like lighting up, like really excited to connect with this person, then this person, this person. And I love that extroverted switch. It's really fun for me to go to events and turn that switch on. But then I need to turn it off and go home and recover. And the switch can be on for as long as, you know, whatever it is that I'm doing. So if I'm at an evening event, then great. I'll go home, like get some sleep and refresh the next day. If I'm going to a weekend-long mastermind, then I probably need to come home and like have a day before I even like dive back into my inbox or back into work or even really back into like my relationship or my friends and family. Like I just need a day for myself to kind of like switch from that extrovert mode back into the introvert mode, because for me it's not just people connection, like being in a room with someone, but to me like my inbox, my email is an act of extroversion. Instagram is an act of extroversion. So I need to be very cautious about like when I'm turning that switch on and when I'm then intentionally kind of like going what you call like going dark or going MIA, and being like, nope, okay, I'm going back into my own world now.
Mm-hmm. How do you find the balance of like maintaining relationships in that? Because I think for me, I am very energized by relationships and growing relationships, and like even when I think about like that conversation Chris was having about me, which was again very gracious. Like I at first I was like and then I was like, oh no, that was very kind. Was like a piece of it for me was very like, yeah, like when I go into these rooms, like I'm really excited about these connections, but it's not about like, and I think this is something I think people need to hear. I don't go into those rooms and sell.
Mm-hmm.
Like
no, not at all.
Like I don't go into those rooms and I'm not like, Ali, like you need social media, like let me do this. It's like kind of like what we just did here, the podcast. People are listening to this, but I'm like, hey, you should do this on your podcast and like do this. And if people work with me, that's great. And if people don't work with me, that's great. And I've worked with people. I've given people so much unsolicited advice, and then they've done other things that weren't what I said, right? Like it doesn't matter. But it's about that long-term relationship. But there's a level of upkeep that comes with that. That it can't just be like you go to a mastermind, you meet 30 people, and you're like, bye, I'm never going to speak to you again. Mm-hmm. Because people do feel that level of closeness. And so how do you feel about like, you know, when you're in these relationships and you're managing this, like, how do you manage this? Like, okay, I'm going to go dark or like MIA or like retreat a little bit and also still maintain these like amazing relationships that I've gotten to build.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good question. And because I think the difference, like the feedback that I've gotten of like in person, kind of the same thing of like, I'm not going into a room and selling because in fact, that is the most uncomfortable thing for me.
Me too.
As an introvert, especially. And so feedback that I've gotten actually from one of our mutual friends, Keisha, was just like having a conversation. Like I think when people meet you, they know your credibility and expertise because you are like just serving. And it's very clear that that is just prevalent in like the way that you're communicating with people. For me, I'm not like doling out advice as much just because I'm kind of like treading carefully and just again in introvert mode. But the feedback that I've gotten is just like a quiet confidence. And I think that it's a different sense of, I don't know, I guess attraction of like, oh, okay, maybe this person could help me with this thing or that thing. But when it comes to managing my introverted nature, like at home, I think there's just certain things that I've done that like work for me, and it may not work for other people. But one of them is I don't have email on my phone. Just because for me, like, I don't email from my phone anyways. Like, I email from my computer. If for some reason, like, email through the phone feels like I'm, like, looking through a tunnel. I don't know why. So, like, that's just a level of separation that's like, okay, I don't need to be sitting at dinner with you and seeing emails come through and then thinking about this project or that project because I'm not going to be responding now anyways. And, again, that's taking me from, like, being present in this moment with you to my brain being in other places, which is a little bit different than being an introvert, but like that's a big piece of it for me, is just kind of like where my mind is. And then other things that I've done is like I only take meetings on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So Tuesdays and Thursdays are my extroverted days. Like I usually like to set like 3 priorities for the day. So on Mondays, those priorities tend to be more like admin related, of like getting, you know, some things done behind the scenes of the business. Whereas Wednesdays, it tends to be more like creative work. So those are my priorities. Whereas Tuesdays and Thursdays, my priority, like my single obligation for the day is to show up present and engaged for my clients on client calls. And so that way I can dedicate all of Tuesday and Thursday to being an extrovert and to being really connected and present and not worrying about all the other things. But then I can retreat back into my own world and have a full creative day on Wednesday or catch up on Friday. And so I've really designed my week to just work around like the way that I'm structured, like what works best for me.
Okay, I love that because I think that time structuring like in a week is something that we don't talk about enough as entrepreneurs. And there's a coach I like, Dan Martell, he's a Canadian, and he talks a lot about how he's like, and I haven't totally prescribed to this, so I'm still trying to like figure out, because it's one of those, I booked so far in advance that I would really have to like mess things up, and I think I just emotionally can't. But he talks a lot about how like if you're a podcaster, you podcast for one full day. If you, because the mental switching is really exhausting for people. And I think especially introverts, where like that is so exhausting to have to be going back and forth. But I'd never thought about like text message response, email response, like as seeing that as an act of introversion or extroversion. Like I've always been like, oh, these people just like, they're quiet, like, you know, but like I've never thought that that's been also something that can feel really draining.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and because the thing is, I love all my connections. I love my friends. I love my family. But there's times where I have to be in the right mindset, or give myself the space to respond to messages. Otherwise, it does feel like a drain. And I don't want to feel that way when I'm responding to messages from friends and family, or responding to clients' emails, or hopping on a Zoom call with a client. Like, I never want to feel drained going into it. So I need to just be mindful. Like you said, it's the mental shift of going from one thing to the next. I need to like streamline it of like, okay, here's this bucket of time. This is what I'm focusing on. So it's a bit of time blocking, which is interesting how that's, coming into introvert versus extrovert. But I can see it in you. Like, for you, you're just so naturally an extrovert. Mm-hmm. You can't, it is easy for you to send a message and then send an email and then have a really deep, meaningful conversation. Whereas for me to do that, my brain is in 17 different places and still trying to get caught up. And so just really making sure that I make the time to show up properly in each area of my business, in each area of my life, and for my relationship, friends, and family is if I show up better, then I'm going to also feel better about it.
Yeah. Okay, so this is a question I have for you. So I'm thinking a lot about, especially we met in a mastermind. It was massive. I think there were 40 people in person. Yep. It was awesome. And we got really connected. We stayed in touch for those 6 months. And then even then we hung out in Denver, and then we did the mastermind again. So we've been really connected probably for the last year and a bit. And I'm thinking a lot about when you first enter that kind of space, for our introverted friends who are listening, who are how do I even get into the mastermind? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Where it's not get into it in terms of pay for it, but even build the courage to know that you have to extrovert that hard for 3 days or whatever that looks like. What are some tips you have for someone who might be doing something like that?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think the answer is kind of obnoxious, that it's just repetitions and just continuing to do it. Because the first time we walked into that mastermind that day, I was so tense, and I remember that day, I just wasn't really myself. I was tense. I was nervous about it. It just was out of my comfort zone, because I hadn't we were coming out of 2 years of being at home with COVID, and then all of a sudden thrown into this room of 40 business owners, and everyone's chat. It was a big shift and a lot of transition, and I was in a very transitional phase within my life and business at that time too. Yeah. And so it can be a little bit intimidating, but now when I go, we're going to an event this weekend together, I haven't even thought about it or prepped, because it just the more you do it, the more you get comfortable with it, and the more friends you make. And so I'm trying to think of what I think for me, it's just that I do best one-on-one. Whether it's and I've always felt this way, if I'm going out to dinner with a group of friends, I love that. I think that's really fun, but I would rather have a side conversation with the person next to me than try to have a conversation with the whole group, and the conversation's pinging back and forth. And same thing at events, is that I want to sit down next to whoever I end up sitting next to, really get to know that person, and then at lunch get to know the next person. And instead of feeling I'm walking in and have to meet every single person, or have to walk up and introduce myself and be the loudest person in the room or anything like that, I just want to show up as myself and be confident in that, and have those meaningful one-on-one connections, because I trust in the fact that I'll meet the right people and have the right conversations.
Okay, I love that, because I do find that for me as an extrovert, it's I don't dislike one-on-one connections, but I do feel more trapped by them. When I'm at an event, if I'm stuck with one person, I have mad FOMO, because I'm there's so many people. I'm not stuck with one person. I love meeting people, and I love doing Zoom one-on-ones, and I love that kind of thing. But when you're at an event and you're stuck with one person for an hour and a half, I'm ooh, what else is there? But not even because I don't love the person. I could be talking to you, and I would probably feel the same FOMO, because I'm oh, there's just so much going on. But then when you and I are out for lunch, I'm having the best time, and I'm so happy to pour in and get poured in too. So it's interesting, because I think I know, for my own life prior to this, I think you know this, but I used to do Myers-Briggs for people. And so a big piece of Myers-Briggs is this idea of are you an extrovert, are you an introvert? And in the Myers-Briggs understanding is that like you can't be both. But because people are always like, I'm an ambivert, and I'm like, not according to Myers-Briggs. But it's like where you get your energy from. And like, but you can have facets of being introverted. Like I'm highly reflective, but it's because I'm an only child. So those were learned skills. Like I was alone a lot, like, you know, but at my core, I know I'm extroverted because like when I go to an event and there's 50 people, I'm buzzed. Like that's my best. That's how I feel like most like excited and alive. While like for other people, like that's like a living hell, right?
Yeah, and I know that I'm an introvert, not an ambivert, but for me, like while I'm at the event, I am buzzed. I'm like, I'm so excited and jazzed, and like there's times where I don't feel that way. Like I've walked into rooms where like events for business, for example, where I'm like, oh, these aren't really my people. Like I'm not really connecting. I feel kind of like out of it, and I don't know, just like I'm not making those valuable connections. And so there are times, but if I'm in the right room with the right people, then like I do feel that high and that buzz. But for me, the thing is, I need, like, I'll come home and my brain will be spinning. Like, I'll be replaying every conversation that I had that day in my mind. And, like, this has gotten much better over the years. But, like, I used to not be able to fall asleep even though I was tired because I was just kind of, like, replaying all the moments.
I like processing.
Yeah. But now I know how to process that. And for me, it's just that, like, I take that buzz and then the next day I need to crash and just, like, not do anything and not socialize and just, like, take some time for myself, whether that's, like, going for a walk or going for a hike or doing some yoga or, like, just do something to, like, kind of refresh because there's a crash for me after. Whereas I think for you... correct me if I'm wrong, like, you just, like, keep going and, like, ramping up and up and up.
Yeah, and it's funny because even with events and stuff like that, like, I could go to, like, one event, go to a second event, have lunch with somebody, go to another event, like, and then I would need a break, but it would take a while for me to get to a point where I'm burnt out.
Yeah.
But I know, like, I've, like, most of my best friends are actually introverts, which is not shocking because I feel like we, like, bring them in so we can talk the whole time. But
not a bad strategy, honestly.
Yeah. But, like, my friends will be like, I'm burnt out. Like, we had lunch, we had dinner, like, we're out, like, you know, or we're having a bachelorette, we need, a few minutes to relax. And I think that's also my own learning. It's, like, trying as I get older and because something I really respect about you, Ali, like, lots of things, but one of them is, like, you really built your business, like, for your life, you know, while, like, I feel like I've built my business, like, for my life, for my business, right? Where it's, like, I'm trying, like, for the next month, I'm home 2 days.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and that's, like, not sustainable. Like, that's not a sustainable way to live. But, like, for you, you're so, like, I had a launch, and I went to Aspen during my launch because an amazing opportunity came up, and, like, I would never, but I really respect that you did that because that was for your own, like health and wellness and fun. And that's why you're an entrepreneur, not at a desk.
Well, and that, like, for me, again, like, it all plays into the introvertedness, but this opportunity to do this incredible backpacking trip came up, and it was during, like, our busiest time for work. And I was like, well, it's too bad I want to do this backpacking trip. I'm going to do it. I'll work extra hard leading up to it to make sure that all of the pieces are in place. My team is prepped, and, like, we know what we're doing while I'm away. But then, like, for me, like, taking those 4 days to be in the mountains, like I told you when we got together today, I had not touched a computer in 5 days. Like, it was amazing. And that, for me, is the biggest form of, like, refresh, that I came back from that, what was, like, a very busy time, that I felt a little scattered and felt a little bit burnt out, maybe. Like, going and being in the mountains and just, like, hiking for 5 days, that's how I come back. Like, physically, I'm exhausted, but mentally, I'm so much more refreshed because I took that time to just, like, be in my own bubble for a while.
Yeah. I actually still feel levels of that, especially when I do things like go to a spa. Like, we do this, like, weekend every year, and, like, I went last November. I'm already looking forward to going again this November, and it was, like, I remember just feeling, like, so like, excited, but, like, all of these thoughts were coming to me that, like, I never give space to. And so even, like, extroverts, I think, also need that, where it's, like, taking that time and that space. But yeah, I just wanted to note that I was really, like, I'm very envious, but envious is the wrong word because I could do this too. It's just about, like, creating the space for it and creating those boundaries. But you do have such strong boundaries, and they really allow you to live, like, this, like, amazing life that you're so excited about, and that's why, like, you became a business owner.
Well, and it's funny because it's definitely come over time, because I would never, like, 3 years ago, I wouldn't describe myself as a high boundary person. And still I would say I'm like mid-range. But there is, I think it is, as an entrepreneur, it's easy to, like, we all say, like, we've all heard the thing of, like, oh, I didn't, what is the saying? Like, I quit my 9 to 5 to work
24/7.
24/7, yeah. And, like, that, it's so easy to fall into that. And I've had those seasons, and, like, I will again, too. But I was telling a friend, like, I'm going to Costa Rica for a week next month. And I was telling a friend, like, I'm not bringing my computer. Like, it's just my boyfriend and I. Like, I just want to, like, go and hang out and, like, just truly disconnect for the week. I'm going to delete Instagram. Like, just really be there in Costa Rica and enjoy it.
Thank you for giving me this heads up.
Yeah, I won't be speaking to you that week.
Yeah, thank you.
But anyways, I was telling her, I was like, actually, I think I might even want to take the day, like, we leave Saturday. So I was like, I think I might want to take Friday and just, like, do nothing that day and, like, get prepped so I don't, because I feel like getting out of town, it's also, again, like that, I guess for me, extroversion is just, like, when there's a lot of things in my brain, whether that's people or conversations or things to do. Like, the to-do list is also kind of a form of extroversion. And for me, getting out of town, that day before is always so chaotic of, like, oh, I want to send this email and do this and do that. And, like, I need to pack and all of this stuff that then it takes me a whole day to, like, actually get into vacation mode. And that, like, basically burns a day of my vacation. And so anyways, I was telling a friend that I wanted to take the day off before and, like, make that crazy chaotic, like, I'm leaving town day the day before, make it Thursday. And she was like, well, and she's not an entrepreneur, this friend's not an entrepreneur, but she was like, you realize, like, you started your own business, you can make your own schedule and do whatever you want. And I was like, yeah, I know, but that's a lot, like, from the outside, it's so much easier said than done. Like, it feels like I'm already taking a week off, so to take this other extra day just to, like, literally be at home and prepare to be on vacation feels bonkers to me. And to do that same thing, because I always do that on the tail end, but now I'm like, oh, okay, now I want to do it on the front end. And it just is so easy to, like, remember that we can do those things and that, like, the to-dos will always be there. And they'll be waiting for you when you get back. So why not just, like, take the time so that you can show up for your best for your clients and for your team and for your family.
Well, it's funny. I posted this thing on Instagram, and it was, like, one of the most popular things I've ever posted recently. But I had this friend tell me, we were talking about going on, like, she wanted to take a day off, and she had to ask her boss, and her boss kind of said no, and we were, like, just kind of talking about it, and I was like, that's so crazy, like, your boss said no, like, oh, like, that sucks. And then, like, I took a breath, and I was like, oh my God, like, I can't remember the last time I took a day off. I am the boss that says no, but it's, like, to myself.
Yes.
But it's not even that, like, I feel like this, like, pull, because I'm like, there's just so many things to do, and, like, you know, even my calendar right now, I'm, like, sending people Calendly links, and I'm like, yep, see you early November, like. But it's like, I feel like I'm on this, like, high. I'm like, oh, this is going so well. Like, I don't want to, like, mess it up. But it's like, you know, body keeps score. Like, it's, like, going to catch up, right? And so I think it's like, you know, even though, you know, we're building these little empires and these businesses that we, like, love so much, it's like we didn't build them to work this much. And I think knowing that about ourselves is so important, because I think it's so easy to just, like, get after it constantly.
Totally. And I've like, tried to use that as an excuse at times in the past, too, that I'm like, oh, well, I can't, because I travel a ton, so I'll just be like, oh, I'll just bring my laptop with me. But then I'm supposed to be on vacation, and I'm, like, waking up an hour early to do some emails or something. And it's like, well, no, that's not vacation then. Like, that's, you know, and so it's okay to, you know, treat it more like a 9 to 5 and give yourself that time, because, again, you'll always get caught up on the work.
Yeah. And it's like, it's always about the flexibility too. Like, it's like we build these businesses and we're, like, excited about building these businesses. And it's like, okay, so I have, like, sometimes I'll do work on a Sunday night. I don't feel bad about that.
No.
Because if I want to midday on a Wednesday stop working and go out for lunch and, you know, hang out lay in bed with my dog, I don't feel bad about that either. And so I think it's about trying to build these businesses that, like, work for us. And I think that's also what brings back to this, like, introverted, extroverted networking community building thing, is that, like, building a business in the way that you sell needs to work for you. And so you don't need to be like everyone else. Like Maria doesn't sell. Like, my business partner doesn't sell ever. And that's just part of her ethos. She's like, I don't like doing it. It makes me uncomfortable. It's not like, like she used to do sales calls with me and then afterwards would have to take like a day off because she was like, it's so exhausting. So we've built her role to be a lot more like of the stuff that lights her up. While like selling, I love that because I love actually seeing the potential for people. Like I see it as an opportunity, like for them and for us. So I think, but if you look at my business, like you're not going to run your business like I run it. And I'm not going to run it the way you run it because I'm never going backpacking. So, but it's like finding the ways that like, if we've got these like talents, like, you know, I don't want to just seem like I got you on this podcast because I'm like, you're introverted. It's like a disease. Like, tell me it's not, because I actually think like introverts are some of the most thoughtful people. And like when they like extroverts, when they're asked a question, right, before they're processed, it's out, right? Like introverts take the time to think about things. They're solutions focused. Like there's like all these pros to being an introvert in business too. And so yes, networking might feel stressful or like you might have like a lower tank for it. But I think when you have the chance to like do it and it feels right for you, I think it can be really powerful.
Yeah, and it's all about it. For me, at least, it's all about the refueling process. Like I could, because for me, if I went to event, then I'd be totally burnt out. And whereas if I go to event and then refuel and then event, and whatever refueling means for you, it's different for all of us. But I guess for me, like there's always going to be busy times within the business and then there's going to be quieter times. And I really like lean into that just kind of like natural cadence that happens within my business. Cause like say, let's see, it was this summer, I got back from a mastermind and I was telling my business friends, like, I'm not interested in working right now. I'm not interested in it. I want to take care of our clients, but like, I'm not going above and beyond internally within the business because they're like, I don't need an internal project right now.
Yep.
I just am like cruising. I'm wanting to like just enjoy life. And then there's other times where we're in a launch season right now that I want to work. I'm lit up by the work and I want to do that, you know, Sunday evening or work till 6 p.m. and like, you know, have that longer period of time. And one thing that's helpful for me in terms of, because I think burnout is talked about a lot in the entrepreneurial world, is thinking about like, okay, is this a problem or is it a season? And as long as it's a season, then it's like, okay, great. Here's my busy season. This is what I'm doing when it ends. And so for me, like I'm in a busy season through the end of this month, maybe into the middle of next month. And then it gets to be the holidays time. And I have like 2 of my best friends' weddings. And so I am not taking on any internal projects. We'll have our normal client load and I know what the cadence of that is like. I know what the workload is like. Whereas for me, it's the internal projects, like my own projects, like building my personal brand and this launch that we're doing. That's what like zaps a lot of my energy because I'm so passionate about it that I could sit and work on it all day. I give myself boundaries of, okay, great. At the end of this, you know, whatever it is, like this is when I'm going to be done working on it. And then from like, for me, the holidays this year, like I'm taking on no extracurricular internal projects so that we can really focus on our clients. And then I can also just disconnect and be with friends and family and travel and live the lifestyle that I created this business for.
I love that because I actually think a lot of like us take on these internal projects that we don't need. And like I often find where like I'll have an idea and I'm like, oh, should we make like a hiring page on our website? So like we always have a social media manager hiring posting up, and then it's like, okay, we're in the middle of getting our course launched, we're in the middle of like all of these things, like let's add it to the list. But it's so easy to get wrapped up into all these projects and feel like we need to do them now, which is like it creates this really false sense of urgency because we're all so like motivated by what we're doing. So it's like really easy to be like, oh, like we need to do this like instantly, but we don't. And I think building those boundaries is so important.
Yeah, one of the things, I'm a big to-do list person, I think, as you know. But I have my like, you know, just kind of daily to-do list, but I also keep up what I call my parking lot to-do list. And it's different from the goals in a little way because like it's not timely. Like it's like, this is an idea I have, I want to do it when I have this. So say I end up having, you know, a free afternoon this week, then maybe like that's a great project to go and do. But if it doesn't happen for 3 months, that's also totally fine. And so the parking lot to-do list is for me that area of like, okay, it's written down somewhere so I can get it out of my brain. I know it'll happen, but it doesn't need to happen today or tomorrow. It doesn't have to like rock my whole week. That it's there. I know that, you know, it'll get done, but it's also like I still have my top priorities for the day and it's not going to mess with that.
Oh, I love it. Okay, Ali, for those listening, as we wrap up at least this part of our conversation, because we're going to do a second episode, is if you had to give somebody one tip, there's an introverted friend listening to this and they're like, Ali Hicks-Wright, give it to me. What's the one tip? I'm about to join a mastermind. I'm so scared to get in the room. What's my one tip?
That's a good question.
Just processing in true introvert fashion. See, I would have given 12 tips by now, and none of them would have been well thought out.
I know, but that's why I'm like, what is the one tip? I don't know.
It can be more than one if you're really struggling over here.
I think it comes down to confidence of just like, if you're showing up in a room and like it feels really intimidating, like just know that like your whatever it is that you do, you know it better than anyone else in that room, and you can meet them, hear about what they do, and you can share confidently about what you do. And so just like giving yourself that permission slip to like just be confident in who you are, because at the end of the day, like, you know yourself.
Yep.
And so just showing up and really like showcasing that. You don't need to impress people. You don't need to like meet every single person in the room. You don't have to be the most talkative or loudest person in the room. You don't have to be the one raising your hand every time. It's just like make valuable connections by just truly being yourself, because other people are going to feel intimidated too.
Mm-hmm. Yes, 100%. Actually, one last point. I'm just going to say I had a dinner with someone recently, and when we were sitting down and chatting, she was like, oh, like, you really intimidate me. And, like, that's why I've been, like, a bit distant with you. It's because, like, you really intimidate me. But, like, talking to you, like, one-on-one has been really, like, helpful. And so I think, like, if there's people that intimidate you or you're, like, worried about it, like play to your strengths. Like, you know, if you're good one-on-one, ask that person out for coffee. Like, go and connect with that person for lunch. Like, you know, it doesn't have to be the 50-person mastermind. Like, it's great, and I think stretch yourself. But, like, if you're, like, you know, in your first season and you're like, I don't know, like, how to connect with people, or I'm worried, let's play to your strengths and make those one-on-one really deep connections, because introverts are so amazing at that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so true. Oh, and I just thought of another one, too, but it's just I think it's something that everyone should do, and I think it's so easy not to, and I oftentimes don't take my own advice on this, but it's like, if you're going to an event or some sort of mastermind or anything like that, plan the time after for processing and some implementation. Like, if you're going to a 2-day event, make it a 4-day trip, and because that last day is just going to be travel anyways, like, give yourself that buffer day to like go back through your notes, because that's going to make it so, because like, especially as introverts, like, to have so many conversations, or even if you're totally silent, sitting in the back row listening to like keynote speakers and you don't say a word to anyone, that's still a lot of information that's coming into your brain. It's a lot of information to process, and to pick out the pieces of like, okay, this is inspirational to me, or this is a direction that I want to go. Oh, okay, that piece didn't resonate as much with me. And really take the time to process that and figure out then how you're going to take that home and implement it into your life and business. I think one will just like make you remember it so much more, and then I'll also just give you that time to like refresh before like trying to dive back in to your day-to-day life, because at least for me, my experience with going to events, it's kind of this other world. Like, you kind of like dive into a whole nother world for a few days, and then you kind of like, you get back to your desk and you're like, oh, so now I send emails, or like I designed this logo. Like, it's kind of disorienting. And so giving yourself that transition time, I think, is super important.
And I was just going to say, that's the power of actually going to in-person events, is like, you almost like never come back the same as you were.
Totally.
Like, you were given a piece of information or something that totally like amplified whatever you're doing, or like made you switch like gears or whatever that looks like, and you're never kind of the same. And so I totally agree, like, introverts, extroverts alike, like taking that implementation integration time, because I know the feeling. I'm the same. I'm like jumping back in. I'm like, right away I'm back in client work, and yeah, it's a gift to give yourself that time.
Yeah, it really is. And I think for me, like, as an introvert, like, I'm also a doer, though. Like, I want to cross things off the list and go. But for me, it's really when I get quiet that, like, because if I'm go, I'm kind of, I'm an indecisive person. I don't know, like, which way to go, just because there's a lot of noise. Whereas it's when I get, like, really quiet with myself and just, like, take a moment, like, skip a beat and, like, just take a moment that it's like, oh, okay, there's the vision. It's crystal clear. Like, let's go after it. And so just giving yourself that quiet time to really just process and, like, filter out other people's thoughts and ideas and noise, and hone in on what is yours and, like, your voice and your intuition and everything, and just going with that.
Oh, Ali, thank you so much for sharing your introverted wisdom.
Of course.
I'm so grateful for you, and just grateful to have the conversation, one, in person, because we were going to do this via Zoom, but this is way better. And two, this is such high value. I'm excited for the people who are listening, who are, struggling with how to make those connections and how to go all in. So grateful for you.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yay. Thanks so much for listening to the Build Your Digital Community podcast. If you loved the episode, please don't forget to rate us and leave us a review. Now, we'd love for you to be a part of our digital community. Text JOIN to 855-908-4688 to join our text list for exclusive social media tips, or DM us on Instagram at The Social Snippet, letting us know what you loved about the episode. Keep on building community, and to this and so much more.